All right, it is recording. So thank you for this short focus group on employee engagement. So I have a series of 4 questions, and I appreciate just your top of mind thought response to these that are just true for you, okay? So we ready to go?
Yep.
All right, first question. How would you define employee engagement?
I'll start.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Yeah, sure. So, for me, employee engagement is, it's when an employee has an authentic connection to, the work that they're doing or the mission of the organization, the mission statement of the organization that they're working for, and they have a emotional, connection with it. They're motivated, they're enthusiastic, they look forward to their work, and it's not necessarily just a job. It's not just a paycheck or anything like that, but there's a deeper connection behind it. And, if there's challenges or obstacles, it's not necessarily defeating. It's more so like, how can we get around it? How can we solve it? I feel like that type of mentality and that type of approach to it is reflective of someone that's engaged and wants to be a part of the solution.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rob.
Tony, I'll go next. It's Stacy.
Thank you, Stacy.
When I think about employee engagement, I think about it being truly the lifeblood of any organization's ability to be successful in what they're pursuing. Like Rob said, it's a connection to the mission. It's a connection to the goals of the organization in a very personal way that's meaningful and that turns me onward to do my very best work. And I love one of the Gallup organization's things that they talk about a lot is I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. And I think about that statement and it resonates with me every single day when I'm at my job, at my desk, and I'm doing what I do well. I just feel that sense of energy and engagement, for lack of a better word, and motivation to want to contribute. And that's such an interesting part of a worker's psyche, is being able to provide them with those opportunities to really truthfully, wholeheartedly engage in what they're doing and really enjoy their work. So for me, engagement is all about giving folks the opportunity to do what they do best every day.
Great. Thank you, Stacy.
Hi, Tony.
Hey,
so when I employee engagement, I think about the positive relationship between an employee and an organization. So similar to what both Stacy and Rob have shared, there's strategic goals and objectives that the organization is trying to accomplish. And when I think about employee engagement, it's that sweet spot when that employee feels they can be able to operate in their passions and they can bring their talents and to drive towards those organizational results. So that's what I think about when I think about employee engagement.
Great. Thank you. That's a great response, you guys, to the first question. So the second question is, do you believe employee engagement is high at NWEA? And then why or why not? So who would like to answer that first?
Tony, it's Stacy. I'll take a quick shot at that one.
Great.
We are so fortunate to work at NWEA, a not-for-profit organization that is truly mission-driven. Our talent acquisition team does a wonderful job in talking to new prospects about us being a mission-driven organization. And you just feel that every day in the work that we do. So I do think that NWEA runs higher than average companies in employee engagement. That doesn't mean we don't have opportunities to close gaps and continue to drive through leadership, through vision, through daily support of our team members. But we are very, very fortunate to have a mission that we can all wake up every morning and get behind. And I think that does help drive engagement at NWEA.
Great. Thank you, Stacy. Who would like to answer that question next?
I'll go.
Oh, thanks, Rob.
Similar to what Stacy had mentioned, I think, the mission and purpose of NWEA, I think engagement is, above average, if you kind of want to put into those terms. I think naturally over the years, I think it can fluctuate. I think it can go up and down just depending on what the landscape looks like, or what types of internal changes happen from time to time. Not everyone's going to be on the same page 100% of the time. But, being on the talent side of things, like as I'm talking to candidates, that's, one of the biggest things that attracts candidates is not just benefits and not just compensation, but just the work and the mission behind it, because we are not for profit, education related, working directly with students. I would say it's fairly high, and especially now with what's going on in today's climate. Obviously education is really impacted, and so I think now more than ever, we have a need for that connection to our partners and to students and stuff. And I think, because of that need and that gap we need to close with what is ahead of us, I think engagement's all the more higher.
Great.
So yeah, when I think about employee engagement at NWA, I honestly think that this is an organization that, in my humble opinion, I think it's more of a high performing organization. I do think that for the most part across the organization, just as you would see in most organizations across the employee life cycle, you have some employees that are super engaged and they're really still all the great work that they're doing. They are attached or they feel the connection to the mission of the organization. And then you do, to Rob's point, you have times where it fluctuates because people, maybe they've been in that role too long, or maybe it's no longer their sweet spot. They're no longer passionate about it. But I do think overall NWA, given the mission that we have to partner and help all kids win and learn, I think there's so much incredible work that's happening. I think our leaders do a really great job to kind of meet us where we are as employees and leaders to ensure that there's an opportunity for really solid employee engagement.
Great, thanks you guys, good responses. What role do you feel senior leaders play in increasing employee engagement?
I'll go first, Tony, if that's okay. So when I think about employee engagement and leaders, I think that leaders play an incredibly role when it comes to employee engagement. I think recently, given the COVID pandemic prevention operations we've had across NWA, our leadership team, our executives across the team, including myself, Tony, you guys have been so authentic, so transparent. You guys have communicated so well to make all the employees across the organization feel a spirit of inclusion, feel valued, feel that we're cared for. And for me, it's been really an incredible experience because it's unprecedented times. None of us in our lifetime can say that we've ever experienced this. My daughter said not that long ago, do you realize we're part of history now? We're going to be in history books based on what we're going through. So when I think about all that, I think that leaders play a pivotal role in determining whether or not employees are engaged.
Okay, great.
I'll go next if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, like Tanaya said, I think executive leadership plays a crucial role in that. One of the things that I always think about is transparency. I think transparency through the good and the bad is really important. Sometimes, we may not hear things that is good news, but I think transparency is crucial so that, there's no smoke and mirrors. We're able to, make good decisions, not just for our careers, but also just our, life outside of careers and stuff too. And that goes a long way with engagement. I also think giving as much as possible the correct resources and tools for employees to do their jobs effectively. I think that's really important as well. We're not always going to get everything that we want, but, having a realistic, tool set to work from, whether it's a really small project or a huge strategic initiative, I think is really important as well. And I think also, this kind of goes together with transparency, but I think having a clear path and, kind of a clear vision on where the organization wants to go is important too. I think having that be communicated is really crucial. So, employees know where their contributions are going and how they can affect that roadmap and kind of where it goes. And then the last thing that I'll mention is allowing employees to have a voice as well. I think that's really, really important. you know, again, we're not always going to get everything that we want or that we ask for, but having a voice, sharing our thoughts, taking them under consideration, and, you know, trying to or allowing them to get traction where it makes sense. I know for me is also you know, really important too.
Cool. So Vanessa, thank you for joining us. The question we were asking is, what role do you see senior leaders playing in increasing employee engagement? And Tanaya and Rob had responded to it. I don't think Stacy, you had. Is that correct?
I haven't yet, but I have thoughts.
Okay, give us your thoughts, and then Vanessa can chat. All right.
Good. I'll let Vanessa warm up a little bit because I know she'll have some too. Gosh, Tanaya and Rob have just absolutely hit the nail on the head when you think about the role that senior leaders play in employee engagement. You know, and transparency is a huge piece of that. For me, there are 4 very specific things that I need from my senior leaders so that I can be engaged. Those are trust, compassion, stability, and hope. I need to be able to trust the person that I work closest with, the person who's driving my work and helping inspire me on a daily basis. I've got to have that level of compassion, especially in what we're all experiencing today in our lives. All of us are experiencing it in different ways and different measures, but just having that human connection and that level of compassion means so much to me. So I've got to have that for my level of engagement to remain constantly high. I need that feeling of stability, and transparency builds right into that. I need to know what's going on, the good, the bad, the ugly. And if I'm aware of that or know where I can ask the questions, I feel so much more informed and engaged and empowered. And then finally, I need my leaders to show hope in what we're doing, and we're taking the right course. Even in times of ambiguity, we've got to know that we're headed in the right direction. We're doing the best that we can possibly do with what we've got today. So if I get those 4 things, trust, compassion, stability, and hope, all lined up with transparency, those are the things that my senior leadership team can really do to help keep me engaged.
Great, thank you. Vanessa, do you have a response?
I do. So I think I have 2 in terms of for senior leadership to really focus on employee engagement and to have me engaged. Emotional intelligence, so EQ, really having that, really understanding that life is messy and muggy, and that life really doesn't care about our plans. Life does not care that we have a meeting at 7 o'clock in the morning, and our kids don't care, and things that are going on in the world. One of the things that's occurring right now in our culture, and that's really being impactful, is really helping me to understand that and see how important emotional intelligence is, seeing how leaders respond to that and can be flexible and understanding and compassionate and empathetic, and all of those things that we like to call soft skills, but they're really not. It's really emotional intelligence, which plays out just as important as IQ. And I think the other that I would say would be integrity. Being very honest, being very direct for me in terms of communication, saying what you mean, meaning what you say, being honest about what you're saying, being very thorough and supporting, and then also being accountable. All of that falls in under integrity. So if you make a mistake, saying that you make a mistake. I made a mistake, it was an oopsie, however you want to refer to it, a challenge, issue, ouch, however you want to reference it, that's a part of the integrity for me as well, being accountable and owning when there are mistakes and moving past that and getting to that point that Stacy just mentioned so eloquently, the hope. There's hope. We made a mistake, but there's hope at the end in the process.
Great, thank you. So here's our last question. This has really been rich, everyone. So does your own employee engagement fluctuate? Why and why not? Vanessa, go ahead.
Absolutely. I think that's, as we were just talking about, as I was mentioning the EQ and about life happening. So depending on how you are engaged, what is happening in life, how you're able to balance, I think that's the ebb and flow of life as to whether or not employee engagement. There are some moments when I can look back over my time. I've been with NWEA 5 years. So there are times that I can look back where I was so tuned in, and every moment I had on my NWEA t-shirt and I had on my swag bag, I had my backpack, and I was engaged, and you could ask me anything and I'd tell you about MAP and I'd tell you about this, and I was really there. And then there are those other moments, for example, when my stepfather was very ill and when I was going through something. And so my engagement was not necessarily a reflection of what was going on with my supervisor or with my manager at the time, but the ebb and flow of life was happening. And that's when having that supervisor, that manager, steps in with that EQ and says, hey, I know your engagement is down a little bit, but it's okay. Life is happening. Vanessa, take your backpack and your t-shirt off. It's okay. Go and do life for a little while.
Thank you, Vanessa. Oh, who wants to follow that?
Well, I'll have to agree with Vanessa. I'd be lying if I, said that my engagement is, doesn't fluctuate. We're only human, I think that's a good point, though, that Vanessa brought up is, there's a lot of external things in life that can affect engagement, just personal things, good and bad, just things outside of our jobs and our careers, but also internally, no organization's perfect. There are decisions that get made that sometimes may not make sense. Sometimes, not everyone's going to agree with them. And sometimes people just need time to process that. So maybe that's a time where they're not as engaged as they, normally are. Internal changes happen. That's just, the way that things go. And those are, probably the, easily identifiable things that can increase or decrease engagement. But, on the other side of that, kind of going back to the mission of the organization, I think when, the dust settles and people kind of have time to process things, I think that's where that engagement is steady, I would like to think, everyone at NWEA is there for the right reasons, all the values line up. So although it fluctuates, I think it, kind of returns to normal and kind of returns, to being steady. But yeah, I would definitely say that mine, can fluctuate. It has in the past. I think that's normal and expected. Oh yeah.
Great. Thanks, Rob.
Hey, I'll go next. So when I
Okay.
think about employee engagement, I'm a really high energy person. And for me, just life in general, like work that's purposeful, my life's mission that's purposeful. For me, I typically stay engaged. My engagement, like I have a laser focus on what we need to do to partner to help kids win. And my energy around that doesn't die. I will say that sometimes when I have engagements as a professional, when you think about emotional intelligence, like Vanessa mentioned earlier, sometimes life is happening for all the people in the ecosystem. And we all may be at different levels when it comes to emotional intelligence or just work-life balance or life. And sometimes for me, the bristles, not so much whether or not I have a laser focus on that mission and I'm driving towards it. It's like, oh, this person's experiencing life. I have to slow down a little bit for that. Or I'm experiencing life outside of work. My family wants my attention. I need to slow down for that. And so for me, my engagement's usually really high when it comes to that mission and vision or for the organization. But I would say when it comes to employee engagement, it's just really being respectful and mindful of the need to balance, not only for myself, my family, but for the people who also I work with. But for me, I usually have a laser focus on where the organization wants to go. And so that's me when it comes to employee engagement.
Okay, great. Thank you. Stacy, round us out.
Tony, I'll just end up with a couple of thoughts and just great echo of all of what my other colleagues have shared. For me, engagement does fluctuate. I think that's a natural part of every person's engagement. One thing that I've done, though, in my 12 years now with NWEA is just try to have those critical measures in my mind. What are the things that are most important to me that matter the very most? And when I start to see fluctuation around those things in my level of engagement, I take some time and reflect around what's causing that. Is it an internal factor? Is it an external factor? Is it something I can control and influence? Or is it something that I got to let go and get beyond? So for me, it's really having those kind of lines in the sand around my personal engagement and the engagement of the teams that I've managed, and just making sure that I know what those critical priorities are. And when we get in the red zone around those, it's really buckling down and paying attention to that to bring the engagement back in those really critical areas. If you can kind of manage them in that way, then although it's fluctuating, it's still kind of finding a really high level overall, and just always kind of trying to keep that in the front of mind and focus.
That's great. Thank you, guys. This has been really rich. I really appreciate the thoughts and the contributions, and both some resonant themes and some individual perspectives on it. So this has been really helpful, and I appreciate you participating in this short focus group. So I'm going to end the recording there, and I thank you. And then